Now, let's go through the temple, because if you guys don't catch the cool thing of the temple, you're missing it. I want you to see this, because this is so powerful, because if you don't know how to do this, if you don't know how to humble yourself and pray, seek his face, you don't get it. So let's just go through the temple. So we have the gate. We come into the brazen altar. This is where you would lay your sacrifice. That would be the death of Christ and our death. When it says that we die to Christ, we lay ourselves on the altar. Now, 3 years ago, push on 3.5, I nearly died in December. Some of you know my story with this. Okay, and I walked out of hospital in 3.5 days. I had a near-death experience. And I keep saying to people, to live as Christ, to die as gain. Hey man, if you've had a near-death experience, to live as Christ, to die as gain, it's a pretty powerful statement, okay? I've said that in the past, but it has a different meaning to people who have nearly died. The world is going through their near-death experience, and they're trying to hold on to it. And you guys keep trying to bug me about like med beds because you want not to die, and God's going, don't worry about death. And you go, no, chill out. Because here's what happens. If you don't go through your own death and not be worried about it, and just go, you know what? I'm giving up myself, because you're setting yourself on that altar with that. Sorry, that's what you need to do. Let me open myself up a little bit more here. You have to lay yourself on that altar with that too. Now, after the priests would kill the fatted calf or whatever that particular altar point was, they would walk over to the laver. This is the water. And they would look into the water, and what they would see is the reflection of themselves. They would see the grossness of their sin, of the blood that was coming off of them. And they would wash themselves in the Word. They would wash themselves clean of their sin. That's what was happening. So they had the death on them, and they would wash the death clean of them. That's and so the excuse me, the priest was doing that. But remember, they don't get to, the Gentiles were on the outside of this thing, okay? And they didn't get to even get into this point. You have to even be a believer just to get into this point. So this is the believer point, okay? You have to believe to even get to this point. And then you lay yourself on the altar, and then you wash yourself in that situation. See, you're the high priest, because Jesus is the high priest, but you are priests. You guys don't understand. You're priests. You have that ability every day to do that. And before you even get into, so many people want to get into the worship and all the other stuff. You can't get into the worship. You got to humble yourself and pray and seek his face. And you got to turn from your evil ways before you got to do that stuff. And see, we're not always ready to do that. And by the way, everyone's got their own stuff. I've got my own evil ways. And I have to do this every day and realize that Christ already killed it long time ago. But just go through that process of killing yourself before you go into this orange thing here. So I'm showing you a little orange point. And you go into and you see a couple things. We're going to start from the top area. The golden table, which is the bread of his presence. So now you have the bread of his presence. So you interact with the presence, and that is the Holy Spirit, the presence that is within you, that sustains you, that presence that is keeping you connected. That's that connection point that happens. Excuse me. The altar of incense. Now you need to smell it. Now, like I would do with an oil, and I was breathing in oils before this, because I would be really coughing a lot. Those are the prayers of the people. You see, God can't even hear your prayer if you don't even offer up, your sin. See, some people are just spending all their time in prayer, but they haven't really, they want to be prayer of his people. They want to go, hey, God, listen to me, but they haven't really offered themselves up in that way. And they're not willing to. Well, guess what? You don't even get to the altar of incense, if you can't offer yourself up and see what and look at the word. Sorry. That's the reality of this. And then we have the golden lampstand, which is the light. Jesus is the light. So we have the Holy Spirit and Jesus right sitting over here. And this is the smell of God. The altar of incense, I've smelled it one time. There was a time, this was Rosh Hashanah of 2008. And my wife and I went to this church. It was kind of a rounded church in the North Tulsa area. And we had helped someone moved. So we kind of came there a little bit late, so we walk in, we were kind of a little bit sweaty, and we were, Wendy and I got in there, and there was two women to the side of us. So we just kind of remember that a little bit. And we're listening to this person talk. We didn't know the speakers at all. We knew some of the people in the group, in the crowd, because we kind of had been going to a para-church type of thing with these people, some of these people. And he's talking about something in the Old Testament, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but he was talking about the incense of God and the power of God. And I'm smelling a burning of God. Now, it was a really cool burning. It was like the burning that you would smell in the woods, like a big fire. And it was a great smell. Now, I'm thinking, okay, but we shouldn't be smelling that in a church because, do we have something like burning? Like, do we need to get the fire department? And I lean over to my wife. I'm like, do you smell that? She goes, yeah. And I lean over to this woman over here, and I'm like, do you guys smell that too? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, so I asked some people in front and behind, and they kind of asked, and no one else smells it other than the four of us. And we all look at each other like, okay, so that must be God something. And no one else smelled it. And so we're just like, oh, cool. Okay. Okay. So we sat back down and just kind of didn't worry about it too much. But that was the prayers of his people. Within a little bit of time frame, this woman who had a visitor's pass, she was walking around the people. She walks up to us and she walks up to people, and she's saying some prophecies over people, and she says a prophecy over the lady beside me, and it was kind of basic, and she says something to me, it's sort of basic, and she walks over to Wendy and she goes, boom, she says a statement that we had been praying in the car over and over again. And it was specific to her. And Wendy burst into tears. Now this woman looks like she just offended Wendy, and I'm almost bursting into tears too. And she's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, just move along. You got the word from the Lord. Just move along. And that was a powerful thing. And that was God saying, and it was a financial conversation. God saying, I'm listening to you. We're gonna fix that situation. That's the altar of incense when we hear that. And that was the Father talking to us. It wasn't the Holy Spirit, and it wasn't Jesus, the Son. It was the Father talking to us. And a very rare instance where the Father would actually talk to us in that way because of the way that incense happened. Now, there is another area where there is a curtain. This curtain was rent because of what Jesus died and was washed in this, and when he did fulfilled all of this stuff, this thing was rent, and it rents from the top to the bottom, okay, or rips from the top to the bottom, and which this thing is like, several inches thick. I mean, it would take big cattle to rip it And so it's almost impossible to do that. But it happened when Jesus died on the cross. And it's a separator. And the priest, when he would go, only the high priest would do it a couple times a year, and he would actually have a little rope around his foot that if he dropped dead, they could like rip him out of there, with that if he was in sin. So this would be a very quiet place with this. So this would be the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant in there with the glory of God, and this is actually the destiny of the bride of Christ. This is your final destiny. It's in Revelation 22. Okay? So this is the cool place. And when you see this kind of thing, you're going, oh man, you don't even see how cool this is. This is what 2 Chronicles is talking about. This is what he's talking about. Do you see? If you're not catching it, you're missing it.